The Kinkaraha, they should be maidservants of this highest principle of getting people somehow or other to fix their minds on Krishna. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we follow this policy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For example, and here's the example, since boys and girls in the Western countries freely intermingle, special concessions, Prabhupada says, special concessions regarding their customs and habits. Prabhupada is very generously calling our ways customs and habits. Regarding their barbaric, he didn't say that, he says, special concessions regarding their customs and habits are necessary to bring them to Krishna consciousness. There's the test. If the adjustment helps people come closer to Krishna, to come to a higher, a stage, then that's the test of the adjustment. But if it doesn't, then it's to be discarded. And, Prabhupada, he would try things. He would just try things. And when they worked, they worked. And when they didn't, he discarded it. We were kind of his guinea pigs. I told you about the road show and the Gaura dress party, right? Did I mention those things? No? No? Oh, okay. That must have been the last place. So I was involved with 2 initiatives personally where it was very, very experimental. And in principle, there was nothing wrong with the attempts. But over time, Prabhupada saw that we were not ready to do what we were doing. Nice, you should go. Have you heard of the circus or the road show? If you've read Damodar Vilas by Vyasaki, and he talks about when Vishnu Jan Maharaj was in charge of this traveling drama troupe. He came in later, actually. It was started in New Vrindavan, Kirtanananda Maharaj. He was the head. And it was a drama. It was all about the fall and the redemption of the jiva. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a poem about this. You read of Saragrahi Vaishnava. Have you read this poem? Same idea. 1871, he wrote it in Puri when he was getting ready to be the magistrate of Puri and the temple, the head of the temple. Alas for those who spend their days in festive mirth and joy. You've read this on the radio?
No, I know it in a Swedish translation from Radio Krishna in Sweden, but not in Danish.
The dazzling deadly liquid forms their hearts for air employ. The shining bottles charm their eyes and draw their hearts' embrace. This is the tune is America the Beautiful. I dovetailed this American tune. The slaves of wine can never rise from what we call disgrace. So then the person falls way down into the modes, way down, down, down. And maybe around stanza 14 or 15, he meets a pure devotee and he starts coming up. He starts getting redeemed. And then by the end of the poem, it's very triumphant. O Saragrahi Vaishnav, so Saragrahi means, O Vaishnav, you who know the essence, who can grasp the essence of life. O Saragrahi Vaishnav soul, thou art an angel fair. Lead me on to Vrindavan. Let spirit's power declare. There rests my soul from matter free upon my lover's arms. Eternal peace and spirit's love are all my chanting charms. Very sweet. The Thakur took this very popular ballad poetic meter of the day. It's called iambic tetrameter and then iambic trimeter. 4 feet, 3 feet. And he's outdone the poets of his day. In Britain and in America, they were using this. Emily Dickinson wrote most exclusive. You've heard of Emily Dickinson? Oh, anyway. Most prominent American poetess probably ever to date. And so it's tracing the fall and the redemption of the jiva. So the roadshow, the circus, the drama we were doing was just that. Only the medium was a rock opera. because we were coming from the 60s, so we wanted to do a rock opera like The Who, right? And Peter Townsend and Tommy. Remember Tommy was the rock opera? I don't make it too young. Anyway. So Prabhupada, he let us do it, you know. He let us, all these counterculture looking vehicles sort of ambled out of New Vrindavan in October 71, tie-dye vans and funky school buses, psychedelic school buses. But with Kirtananda Maharaj leading the charge, you know, men and women together, and we had to have deities that became named Radha Damodar. So anyway, so Prabhupada let us do it, and then Kirtananda Maharaj, he had to leave the troop at one point to go back to New Vrindavan to save the place because it was being mismanaged. And then Vishnujan Maharaj took over. But Vishnujan Maharaj wasn't the disciplinarian that Kirtananda was. Everybody loved him, but he couldn't really crack the whip and whip everybody into shape. So it was getting a little loose, you know, between the men and the women. So then Vishnujan wrote Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, we think that the first American Transcendental Exposition, FATE, has run its course, and we'd like to get some land in Long Island, settle down, and make a yoga village. Nothing wrong with that. We might be able to handle it today, because we're getting, in some places, pretty expert at penetrating the yoga community. So Prabhupada said, no, better you don't make a yoga village. This will become another hippie addition, Prabhupada said. So he stopped it. Now, in principle, there was nothing wrong with it, but it was the wrong time. Because it was only a few years earlier that Prabhupada had found the likes of Vishnujan and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you know, living in trees in Morning Star Ranch, you know. So Prabhupada, no, wait a minute, you're too fresh from the magic kingdom here, you know. Better hold off on this yoga village stuff. But in principle, nothing wrong. Then there was another, and I was involved with it. I ran away to join the road. I ran away from New Vrindavan during a snowstorm to join the road show. And Krishna made me sick. He didn't even let me stay. And then in 73 and 4, devotees were running for office. You heard of this? Yeah, you can hear recordings. Prabhupada was bragging practically. So our men are running, Balabhanta is running for the mayor of Atlanta, and Amarendra is running for the mayor of Gainesville, Florida, and Malini Kanta, the mayor of Tucson, Arizona, and Damodar is running for Congress in Washington. He's very proud the devotees are in, Prabhupada said, with neck beads, tilak, and flag. Prabhupada called the Sikha a flag. Like Pataka, right? Jai Pataka, victory flag. They are preaching boldly Krishna consciousness in the political arena. So, and but it got wild. It got so wild. Somehow, where I was in Gainesville, Florida, all the politically engaged devotees used to come down to Gainesville, where Amarendra, my temple president, was, because he had been a big political radical before he joined, and so he became kind of a lightning rod, you know, for all the political talk. And so they'd stay up late at night, talking about how, well, first of all, Gainesville ISKCON was no longer Gainesville ISKCON. From now on, Prabhu's, we're Gainesville and God We Trust. It was called the God We Trust Party. So we abandoned our dress, and we were wearing, you know, shirt and tie, and we were going out with clipboards, getting signatures for petitions. And we're running in a field of 6. We're running for the mayor, and the leading candidate, he came to the temple begging us to drop out because he was afraid we would take votes away from him, you know, because his rival was close behind him. No, we have a mission, sir. I'm sorry, we're going to preach. So the deity worship was suffering, and the sadhana was suffering, and the book distribution was suffering. You know, we were becoming political animals. So these people would come, these devotees down to Gainesville, and they'd stay up, you know, half the night, and they'd talk about, you know, Prabhupada says that Raja Vijay, king of knowledge, the whole world is being controlled by man-eating Rakshasas. So the day may come, Prabhus, when we may have to assassinate some of these man-eating Rakshasas. Think about it, it was too wild, it was so wild. So then the elections came, and we didn't win, nobody won anything, but then Rupanuga, Maharaj at the time, wrote Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, for the next election cycle, we need a grant from the BBT for $30,000. So that's when Prabhupada stopped it. Because Prabhupada always knew, somehow. Like you said, he's the founder of Acaraya, and he heard the tape today, of how he knows everything about this kind. So he always knew what we were really doing. And so he said, no, enough is enough. We don't mind getting the post, but not at the cost of our God consciousness. He knew we were losing it. Going off the deep end. Okay. So, but in principle, nothing wrong with preaching politically. In fact, this is exactly what Tulsi Gabbard is doing in the Congress, in her own way. She's an out front Vaishnava. I mean, what do they say? Hindu, right? But she took the oath of office on the Gita, and she was in India. She went to our temples and she met Modi, and then on big festival days she gives her message on Diwali and Janmashtami, message of peace and love to the world, blessings of Lord Krishna upon you all. So it's good. Okay, so where are we here? Yeah, that was a story I got wrapped up in. Now, so the special concessions Prabhupada's talking about, to reach the Westerners, they must bring them to devotional service. And if they don't, then you better think twice about what you're doing. Discerning higher principles, lower principles, and adjustable details is best done in the company of like-minded devotees. Well, there's Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, they're certainly like-minded. And in his own way, so is George Hari's son, George Harrison. He also sought out the association of devotees because he was very interested. He was finding his career with the most famous rock band of all time rather empty, and he wanted something more, so he sought out the devotees. There's the first Scottish devotee, Dhananjaya. There's Guru Das, Jamuna's former husband. Mukunda Das Adhikari at the time. Shamsundar Prabhu. He's a full head of hair now, but he looks very transcendental with a shaved head. I don't know who these people are, but I have to find out from the UK. I've seen them a lot. So yeah, George was wanting like-minded association, so he sought out the devotees. And the association with devotees is identified by Rupa Goswami as one of the 5 most important things, principles in bhakti. What are the other 4?
Worshiping the deity, chanting the holy name,
Chanting the holy name.
reading scriptures, reading the Bhagavad.
Reading the Bhagavatam specifically, yeah.
Be in the holy town.
Living in a holy place. Yeah. Prabhupada identified associating with devotees as, sometimes he would say, 90% of Krishna consciousness. Because we're tiny and we do reflect our association. A godbrother once said, Srila Prabhupada, how do I become a pure devotee? How do you become drunk, eh? How do you become a drunk? Prabhupada said. You associate with drunks, Prabhupada said. They will teach you how to be first-class drunkard. Yeah. So we what do we say in English? I mean, a person is known by the company he keeps. You want to know who I am? Check out my friends. Who am I hanging out with? So here's actually what Rupa Goswami meant by like-minded devotees. It's pretty challenging. Can I read? Can you see? Where's the... Here it is. Oh, again. Can you let her read?
Okay. associate with like-minded devotees. One must associate with like-minded Vaishnavas who are pure, more elevated and realized.
That's actually what Rupa Goswami said. That's challenging. In other words, Rupa Goswami wants us to, get beyond our comfort zone and stretch into the stretch zone so we grow, we make advancement. Otherwise we just sort of circle our attachments and aversions forever. We never really get anywhere. Like that story of the wedding party with Bhakti Siddhanta. You know that story? When people were going to a wedding, it was far away, so they hired a boatman to take them there overnight, and they slept on the boat. In the morning they woke up and they were in the same spot, because the boatman had been going in circles all night because somebody forgot to pull up the anchor. So I could be chanting Hare Krishna, for, as Prabhupada would say, 700 years. But if I don't, give up my attachments, that's what we say every morning. And to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. Oops. Yeah. And then the next one we say, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he identifies that as a reservoir of all the other offenses. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. It's like an afterthought, a PS. But it's actually the main one. Because if I'm inattentive, then chances are I'll commit all the other offenses. Because I'm just schnick ram. I was saying, if you go to ISKCON News website, there's a nice video from Desire Tree website of how not to chant japa. I highly recommend this. Have you seen it? It's great. It's all Indian characters in the video, because it's Chopati. It's the Chopati devotees, the home of Desire Tree. So there's a guy, he's a brahmachari, right, so-called, and he's got his smartphone, and he's like really into the video game, but he's chanting, right? He's chanting. He's got the smartphone in his left hand, and he's Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. He's looking at the video game. It's crazy. So that's one down. And then there's another guy who gets on a scooter. In India, there's so many scooters, just like there's so many bicycles here in Copenhagen. It's great. But in India, it's so many scooters, whole families, of course, on scooters. And so he's on his scooter, and as soon as he gets on his scooter, it's funny the way he does it. He looks real pucka, He gets out his bead bag and and then he starts chanting, and then he starts really getting into the chanting, and then whoop, he almost hits somebody. He swerves. So you can't. Only Krishna can really multitask effectively. We're really most effective when we're monotasking. But Krishna can do so many things. And then there's a couple of Indian ladies, Matajis, they were sitting together and they're laughing and they're yakking and they're Hare Krishna, they're gossiping and all this stuff and they're high-fiving each other, but then they got their hand in their bead bag and they're kind of moving their fingers across the beads while they're doing all this stuff. Yeah, there's some other ones too. Oh yeah, and then there was one guy. So it was they were greeting the deities. I recognize this in Chopati. And then, go into prayers and then having kirtan. And one guy's just sitting back and he's trying to do his japa in the middle of the kirtan. And it's like, Prabhupada actually said this is redundant. This is redundant. There's something going on there. And you're trying to chant Hare Krishna, but it's the wrong time to do that kind of chanting. You should be joining the kirtan. And what's the end anymore? Anyway, it's very, it hits home, because you identify, you see yourself and say, oh yeah, and then reading the scripture, while you're chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So you're not really getting the full benefit of either one, because your attention is divided. So, okay, now associate with like-minded Vaishnavas who are pure, more elevated, and realized. And the false ego doesn't like this, right? But it's a good exercise. I mentioned to you about, tell me if I told you this one, about Prabhupada's last visit to LA and how he'd been there for a week. Did I mention this? About the rhubarb chutney? No? Okay. So, it was Prabhupada's last visit to LA. We didn't know it was the last, because we didn't know Prabhupada was going to leave the next year. But he was there for about 10 days, from June 2 to June 11. And a lot of intense things happened. Prabhupada smashed the Gopi Baba Club. You've heard of that one? The GBC, the Gopi Baba Club. And so it was very intense. And after about a week of his visit, I turned to my roommate, Devamrita Brahmachari, and I said, "Hey Devam, Prabhupada's been here a whole week. Isn't it great? I don't know how much longer I can take it." What do I mean? Doesn't it sound weird?
Oh, yeah, you mentioned this.
I did mention it. So what's the purport? There you
It's,
go.
It may be like pretty intense to be in close association with this person once.
Very intense. And I was just, I was living in my DVT apartment across the street. Whereas Hari Shari, maybe he could feel the intensity because he was on the bell, right? The 24-hour bell. But I was just in my apartment, in my room. Hey, Dave, I don't know how much longer I can take this here. So it's like hot, sweet chutney, like rhubarb chutney. Too hot to bear, too sweet to resist. Because just to have His divine grace in the vicinity you're forced, as I said, you're forced to live at a pitch of Krishna consciousness that your false ego is not used to. We're really, really, really Krishna's the center all the time. So there's no room for gross or subtle maya. So the Rupa Goswami says, if we want to advance, we should take association of devotees who are more pure, elevated, and realized. And there's one of the 26 qualities of the devotees, when they're fully manifest, that really do facilitate cooperation. Now we're going to look at that. And the context is, humility. Is Lord Chaitanya, he is instructing Sanatana Goswami over several chapters of CC. I think it's 20 to 24. And at one point in the conversation, Lord Chaitanya, he does what we might call these days a timeout. He just stops and he looks at Sanatana Goswami and he's marveling at his disciple. And he says this. Can you see? You need your glasses.
Okay. Since you possess Lord Krishna's potency, you certainly know these things. However, it is the nature of the sadhu to inquire. Although he knows these things, the sadhu inquires for the sake of strictness.
Now what does that mean? The sadhu, and there's no purport to this verse. So what does it mean? The sadhu inquires for the sake of strictness. Raise your hand.
To reinforce the points or just make them stronger?
Reconfirm. He doesn't assume. Strict and never presuming he knows everything. Like what are those words that block learning? I already know that. We think. But maybe not deeply, just superficially we know things. Strict and never presuming he knows everything. Strict in remembering his absolute tininess. The humble Vaishnava is always glad to hear deeper and deeper realizations from serious and sincere devotees, whatever their stage of advancement, about the Lord and His devotional service. Now, Prabhupada did not purport that verse, but he, fortunately for us, when he came to New York in '76 to celebrate the first New York Rath Yatra, finally after 10 years of him launching the movement in New York, he commented on a whole series of verses, including this verse. So here's what Prabhupada said, and why don't you read, Prabhu?
A sadhu is a saintly person, although he knows everything, still he remains very humble and tries to confirm from the higher authorities, I think this is right. Is it not right? He knows it is all right, but still he waits for the higher authority to confirm it. So this is the relationship Sanatana Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. study all of them very nicely and be advanced in Krishna consciousness.
So Lord Chaitanya is saying, you already know these things, Sanatana, but you're inquiring for the sake of strictness. He's setting an example. Now, can't you hear your mind? Because, okay, the mind may say, Sanatana is confirming his realizations with Mahaprabhu. But, I mean, do I have to confirm my realizations with Prabhu and Mataji? I mean, come on, I've been around for 46 years. I know all these things. If I think like that, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And guess who that kind of mentality is like? You remember in the Mahabharata when Drona wants to test his students, because Drona's been asked to be the martial arts guru of the Kurus and the Pandavas. So he wants to test them. So the two representatives of the Kurus and the Pandavas are who? Duryodhana
and
Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira. Right. So it's an Ekadashi day, and he calls him to the ashram, and he says, all right, Yudhishthira, I want you to go out today from the ashram, and I want you to find someone who's lower than you, who's less than you. And you, Duryodhana, I want you to go out and find someone who's greater than you. And as soon as the assignments are given, it says in the Mahabharata, Duryodhana is already complaining in his mind. Oh, Yudhishthira got the easy one. How am I ever going to find anybody greater than me? This is impossible. So sure enough, they go out, and Duryodhana comes back first. Guru Maharaj, I'm sorry, I could not find anybody greater than me. This is impossible. So I don't know what Drona was thinking, but I can maybe imagine that. Okay. Okay, so afternoon turns into twilight and then dusk. Still no Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira has still not come back to the ashram. Finally, he comes staggering back. Sorry, Guru Maharaj, I'm late. I thought I found somebody less than me. It's a Ekadasi, he had a bunch of grains, but he fed it to his animal. I'm sorry, Maharaj. There's nobody lower than me. And he meant it. So, right. So if I think that I cannot have anything reconfirmed, that everything I think is perfect, powerful, and happy, a la the demoniac nature, then I'm more like Duryodhana than Yudhishthira. So we need to exorcise, we need to cast out that demon of Duryodhana and resurrect our inner Yudhishthira. We have to become more humble like Yudhishthira and less arrogant like Duryodhana. Genuine Vaishnava humility is the platform from which we can make our best contribution, truly appreciate and learn from all devotees, and cooperate with them to please Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and Krishna. So, as Lord Chaitanya appreciated Sanatana's humility, so Lord Chaitanya and Prabhupada appreciate and want our humble cooperation to spread the Sankirtan movement of pure love of God. So we're going to give Prabhupada the last word. Here it is. Here's the scene. There's Prabhupada in Mayapur. And this is Yadavar Prabhu, a younger edition. There's Brahmananda Swami at the time inspecting his fingernail. I think this is Paramhamsa Maharaj. I think this is Panchadravinda Maharaj. Anyway, Prabhupada is there. Prabhupada knew mudras. He knew how to use his hands to accent points. He was very good at that. He is very aristocratic and also very artful.